end of the peloton, the last 30 riders, just tangled together. Some riders probably, trying to get a bit of food down, trying to get something to drink, and a bit close together, bump together, and down they go. And with the roads here, with so many riders, it's always the case that you're going to have a number of riders who are going to bite the tarmac at them.
Stand by for the action to start kicking off as we go inside the last 100 kilometers. Jay Lauren from the Philippines watching for the first time here live on Eurosport. Steve Farndale, Ben Edwards, the Burkitts, Tara and John. Fantastic. Loads and loads of people watching for the first time. John Ironman Lewis from Grimsby. And all the way from Worcester, Hannah Rowley-Birch. There's a lot of people trying. I've got a feeling, Sean, that this race, as it develops, quite different to the Tour of Flanders as it has been, say, 3-4 years ago, where we have these big breaks going away. A lot of people feel they have some sort of chance today to may have some sort of impact on the race.
Well, I think it's part of the tactic, and the ones out in front here, it's going to be impossible for them to continue at this rate, because they've been out there for a long time already, and still with 95 k's to go, as we see another rider making a bike change here. Plancart, it's going to be impossible for those guys up front at the moment to stay up there, but it's a tactic, and it's just make the race difficult for the other riders that they feel can do something in this.
Welcome back. It's the Tour of Flanders. This is the 100th year of the Tour of Flanders. There's a big celebration going on in May of this year in Bruges and Oudenaarde, all the way around Flanders, but this is the 96th race. .32 seconds back from the lead group, with Chalingi, Greipel, Zeeberg, all those guys have got 32 seconds of advantage over the O'Grady counter-attacking group. Still everything's under control here. There's Ian Stannard, the British champion, going well again this year. Stannard, lots of people on Twitter shouting out for Ian Stannard as a potential winner here today. Sean, I think he's a bit, possibly a bit big for this race. I don't know. Doesn't strike me. I would think Roubaix is more his race than this.
Well, I'd not be surprised if we see him in the final. It was amazing in Milan-San Remo on the Poggio how aggressive he was. And when you can do that at an end of a Milan-San Remo, I think he could be up here today in the end of this one, because he is on an unbelievable run of form also. He's in exceptional form the last number of weeks.
Doing the water carrying is Yorkshireman Adam Blythe, getting back into the peloton. And there's a lot of riders having to disperse of jackets and so forth. We all know how difficult it's going to be from now on. .92k to go, and still a lot of riders well, they're trying to fuel up while they can, Sean, because they know that from now on, really, the climbs are going to come thick and fast.
Well, it's important that continue on eating regularly, and also drinking as much as you can, because with the cold conditions you don't feel that you need to drink, but you certainly do to hydrate well, and also the food intake, you just keep on taking every 15-20 minutes, try and get something down. It's very important for the final. And some riders can do it so easily, because they're sitting here in this group in the top 20-30 riders very comfortably, and the ones who are down the rear and starting to suffer a bit more difficult. And when you ride your bike and you're out on the group ride, the group spin, and the pace is just that little bit too fast for you, well, they are the guys, you are the guys who know how difficult it is to have something to eat or to drink something, and in a race it's that much more difficult.
It certainly is. And high in the air is Mattia Catania of Lamprey, waiting for his car to come up. So we're going to give it a hectic. Overshoes coming off, gilets being got rid of, water bottles and everything else getting sorted out. Vladimir Gusev getting rid of his overshoes there. It can all be a little bit difficult here, especially if that pace goes up at the front. This is quite good for the breakaway riders, because they'll just manage to stay up there a little bit longer, pull out a couple more seconds. Well, this is where Fabian CANCELLARA had problems in the feed zones last year. You're not going to make that mistake again, Sean. We did say last year that Fabian CANCELLARA, a brilliant rider that he is, and a fantastic bike handler, he almost has a nonchalance sometimes when he goes through these things, because he can handle his bike so well. When he gets caught out, he gets caught out big style.
Well, you know, the big riders, they can be so relaxed, and, you know, at a point when there's a lot of riders really nervous, as you get into the final 50 kilometers of the race, going through the feed station as well, there'd be a lot of riders, you know, who would not be comfortable doing that. But some riders, they just go through the feed station totally relaxed. And I think that was CANCELLARA's problem last year, maybe a little bit relaxed. We see him in the Olympic road race as they came through Richmond Park. He also, I think, tactically, he just looked around a bit, and you know, coming into a very fast corner, got it wrong, and went out of the race in that way. And you know, the big riders, and I have seen CANCELLARA, I remember in the Tour of Qatar 2 years ago when we were out there, you know, he was looking for a toilet 10 minutes before the start, and there had been riders sitting on the start line already 20 minutes before that, because it was real windy conditions. The start was giving, and you know, 5-10 kilometers down the road, a leading group of 15 riders, and CANCELLARA was already up there. So you know, it's all about the individual. Some guys are so relaxed at, you know, at a point in the race where there's 50% of the peloton, and you know, they're really, you know, the adrenaline is flowing, they're getting very, very nervous. And that's what makes the big champions, I suppose. If you can be cool in the end of a race, or up to, you know, the very, very final, it's a great talent to have.
When he pulls it off, it's absolutely spectacular. He knows exactly how to sort of stay calm and cool all the time. I mean, Stannard trying to remove the overshoes, not an easy thing to. I wouldn't try this on the club run, folks, when you're trying to when everybody's ready sprinting for signs. There was a couple of the yellow-cladded Vini Fantini riders coming towards the front, Sean. What do you reckon of the chances, and very outsider, of Oscar Gatto? Who always brings a surprise, Gatto.
Yes, well, he's quite good. He can bring a surprise, and I think it's always possible that we could see some riders here in the end today that would not be expecting to be up there. And I mean in the very final, and you know, a rider like that, if you get into the final with, you know, 10-15 riders the very end, well then, you know, there's those riders that are going to try and go in the attack, and that's where sometimes we could see the real big favours, you know, rivalry between them, and you know, just watching each other, and somebody else, you know, just riding away to a victory.
Andre Greipel just stopping pedaling there for a second, wondering what's going on. They're working quite well together at the moment. Two men from Blanco, Martin Talingi and Jurt Sabor. Two men from Lotto Belisol here in here. And Marcel Zieberg at the front, and Andre Greipel in the middle. Michael Kwiatkowski, the rider from Omega Pharma Quickstep, just about to do his turn on the front. And still hanging in there for Topsport Vlaanderen, Laurens de Vries. He's had a good day so far. There's Sepp van Mark. He was on the tarmac not so long ago, caught up with Jérôme Cousin on the floor. And Rohath moves the back as well here. Amador of the... I was surprised to see Amador in there. Rohath is in the middle of the group there. He tried to make it an early attack. A lot of chatting going on. One man from Cannondale adding to two men from Radio Shack, keeping the pace as they wish. Bernie Eisel is sitting up towards the front for Sky. Edvald Bosenhagen, first time we've seen him, Sean, not very far back here, 4, 5, 6 back in his Norwegian jersey.
Yes, and that's where you need to be. I think, you know, up to this moment we don't have to see the big favourites, and that's been the case for a lot of them. There's, you know, just
85 kilometers remaining. 140 is the break. The feed station slowed the peloton down just a little, taking it easy, allowed these men to go through, pull out another 30 odd seconds or so, which is fine. They're working well together. 2 from Blanco, 2 from Lotto Belisol, 1 from Top Sport Vlaaderen, and 1 from Quick Step. So they're quite pleased, I would think. Quick Step, they've got a strong man in here. It means other teams have got to chase, as have Blanco. And Blanco have got 2 men in here, and Lotto Belisol have got 2. Less of a threat, I would think, than Michael Kwiatkowski. The Belisol man on form at the moment, Jürgen Roelands. Blanco, well, I presume they must be riding for Lars Bohm here. The Quick Step squad will be all behind Sylvain Chavanel now, because their man for the overall here today, Tom Bonen, out within the first 20 kilometers, taking a nasty fall and no longer in the race. Who would have expected that? It's one of those very cruel sports like that, Sean, isn't it? As you know yourself, that you can be the best prepared that you've ever been, and it'll just take one tiny lapse of concentration or a mistake by somebody else, and that's the end of your day.
Well, yes, that is bike racing. You know, you're open to, you know, having something like that at any time, any place, and you know, we did not really see what happened with Tom Bonen, but it was rolling along at, you know, a normal pace, and he seemed to, you know, have touched a wheel or maybe just went off the side of the road, fell very heavily. And normally, you know, you can fall over like that and just get up and, you know, have nothing, but you know, he was suffering. He was very sore for a long time, but the good news is that he hasn't broken it for the moment. We'll have to wait a bit further and see if that's exactly the situation. As we can see, Sagan here, you know, coming back to the tail end of the peloton, and a number of teammates around him at the moment. We're getting to the point now, because we're coming to the
Eau de Quermont.
Yeah, the Eau de Quermont, and that's going to be a selection once again. So Sagan will have to just, you know, start making his way to the front of the bunch, because you have to be in the top 30 going on to the Quermont.
Sagan is in your picture here. He is in the lime green of Cannondale, but with the white and blue and red stripes, vertical stripes down the back of his Slovakian champions, or former Slovakian champions jersey there. Maxim Miglinski from Astana in the light blue, getting around the front as fast as he can. Really not wanting to be caught out. And a lot of riders are in the wrong position here. They need to get up to the front and stay there. Sagan was certainly one of them. He's got to get up the front and keep out of the way. His bike handling skills are very good, but he doesn't want to be caught out. So by Chavanel on the far left-hand side of your screen, Danilo Hondo and Bernard Eisel having a bit of a chat together here. But there's Chavanel on the bike path. A little bit in the wrong place here. He's got to get back in. The Cannondale boys are looking over their shoulder to see where their team leader, Peter Sagan, is. He's right down the back of the right-hand side of your screen, on the back end of the peloton. And the Eau de Quermont's going to be one of those areas where they maybe test some legs. I don't think there's going to be a real attack at this point. Well, there may be. You never know. We haven't seen Filippo Pozzato up towards the front at all yet, Sean. He's just hiding away. You'll be able to see him in the pink jersey this year of Lampre, the second last year. And Sky keen to keep riders up towards the front as well. Eisel knows his way around this race pretty well. There's Hayden Ralston in the black helmet for Radio Shack, behind Danilo Hondo of Radio Shack. Then Galopin in the middle. Iglinski looking around in the sky blue of Astana, wondering where everybody is. Ishaev clearly didn't have a problem too long with his front tyre, because he's back on the front doing the driving here for Katusha. Katusha have a very good outside bet in Luca Paolini. I'm going to stick my neck out and put some well, put some imaginary money on Paolini being on the top 3 today. That's a one for me. We haven't seen anything of the Va Consoleil team either, Sean, so far. Björn Lurkemans, if he's in good shape, is a man for today. Certainly can ride Paris-Roubaix as well, but likes this race too.
Yes, he has, you know, the qualities to do well here. The form at the moment, not as good as it has been in the past a number of years ago. But again, I think he should be very much in the final here. And it depends on what happened now the first time on the Quarmount. If there's going to be, you know, a big battle, or will they just ride over and then allow a lot of the riders to come back in again? And in that case, I'm talking about 50+ riders. If that is the tactic, well, then there will be a lot of those riders as Lukemans, and there's so many of the riders will be up there. And it just depends on what way the teams, you know, will take it. Will they just really up the pace on the Eau de Quarmount and continue on from there? Because you have got to continue on, otherwise there will be a lot of riders will start coming back into the main bunch again.
Riders trying to get some respite on the right-hand side of the road and get up towards the front. They're getting on that bike path on the right-hand side. They've got to come back in again. Now, 2 from Blanco there. The news in from the women's Ronde van Vlaanderen. The 10th year of the Women's Tour of Flanders has been won by none other than Marianne Vos. It's the first time she's won. It's the first really big race of these sort of the first really big monument type race that there's only one big race that Marianne Vos has not won. So congratulations to Emma Johansson on the podium again. She's been on the podium in every race so far this season. This is Rohat O'Grady and Anders Lund in the second group, with the peloton bearing down upon them. And Va Consoleil now at the front for the first time, which is good to see. So this is Fletcher just behind Hayden Ralston. They're speeding it up, 74 kilometers. They will arrive at the Eau de Quarmount. This is where everybody will start to show their hand as to who has the legs and who doesn't. As they enter the Eau de Quarmount, whoa, a few riders just having to get it all together. But the big man who won't be showing himself at the front here, as he did last year, was Tom Bonen. Look at what on the right-hand side of the outboxer there. Tom Bonen crashing 20 kilometers into the race today. Hip contusions, right knee with a couple of stitches in, as I understand, and just generally battered. And the man who wanted to make it 4 wins in the Tour of Flanders won't be able to do it this year. Spectacular season last year, but this year he's had nothing but trouble so far. Meanwhile, our breakaway men are on the Eau de Quarmount, as are the peloton. Now they've just turned in. Bonen just could not get up. He tried standing, couldn't do it. Had to get back down again, so there was no way he's going to be able to ride. Doesn't look good for Paris-Roubaix either, does it? Not his year. Brilliant year last year, not his year. Very sorry for those people who've been listening and wondering about what the women's result was and have been taping it somewhere else. It's not on Eurosport, and I'm sorry about that as well. We get what we're given from the feed, and the international feed is the men's race. But to let you know, Marianne Vos won the race today. It's the last of the big races in the whole of the canon of women's cycling that she's never won, and a fantastic win for her. And Emma Johansson on the podium again, and she's been so in every single race in Europe this year. Incidentally, the UCI, who produced the coverage of the Women's World Cup, they have commissioned, should I say, a company to produce the Women's World Cup highlights. There will be highlights of the first 2 rounds coming fairly shortly. That's Trofeo Alfredo Binder, which is round 2, and round 1 Drenthe. Ronde van Drenthe. The Tour of Flanders is round 3. There's also news highlights every week after the races. So if you look on the UCI YouTube website after the, well, some of them towards the end of this evening, you'll see the uploaded news footage package with a few interviews and so forth from the women's race. And there's features packages coming up as well throughout the year, again on the UCI YouTube channel. So a lot more being done for women's racing this year. Meanwhile, back to the men's Ronde van Vlaanderen, and they're on the cobbled section of the Oude Quermont. Halfway up, pretty much, it stops being tarmacked. And this is a nasty one, Sean, because it's a long one.
Yes, well, 2.2 kilometres, you know, the cobble sections are difficult. If you're in the situation as we have our 6 leaders out in front, it's a nice position to be in, because there you can climb it at an easier pace. But back in the peloton, we see that as they turned onto the Oude Quermont, it was really going full gas before that, and it will be quite nervous in the bunch. And I think you know, the bunch will climb it much faster than this group. And as we can see, this advantage is coming down very quickly. Some riders trying to come across.
Alfredo. Johan Alfredo, I have him down as one of the outsiders in orange marker pen. He's an extremely aggressive rider. We've seen him be very successful at launching attacks in Milan San Remo. He's never quite made the big one yet, but twice he's had a very, very good go. As Jack Bauer climbing up through the middle of the Oude Quermont there. Riding for Garmin Sharp, the New Zealander. Ichaev goes through the shot. Genet in the middle for Europcar in the emerald green. Coming through as well. Danilo Honda right at the back, having done a lot of work as well. The technique, Sean, for riding on cobbles like this, uphill's a little bit different, but cobbles in general, stick it in as big a gear as you can? Well,
you stick it in a big gear, not as you can, because you know you could put and the riders here, they could put it in the 53.12, but they don't do that at this moment. You know, you get a gear that you're comfortable with, not something with a too high a cadence, because riding all the cobblestones, it's, you know, it's something you have to do with a bit more power. And you know, some of the riders here are just sitting comfortably in the front end of the bunch. Other riders having difficulty hanging on to the tail end of the bunch. So it depends on what way you're feeling. But you know, the real big favourites here, well, you know, they're going to be very comfortable just sitting there and following the race for the moment.
Russell Downing in the colours of Netap Indira going over the top of the Oude Quermont.
He's not comfortable.
Yeah, I'll tell him that, shall we? Russ, you're looking uncomfortable there. Super chap, Russell Downing, and so he's absolutely stoked that the Tour de France is coming to Yorkshire next year for his Grand Départ as he goes through the shot. He's not that bad, Sean. He's about halfway down the peloton. Not too bad at all. 24 seconds for our Group 3 on the road. All the riders beginning to suffer on the Oude Quermont. It's a hard old race, this one. And this is a hard old hill. Kwiatkowski, Challengi, Greipel, Zeeberg, and at the back here, Laurens de Vries. And Alfredo making a good move here, Johan Alfredo. I'm a big fan of this guy as a rider. Stupid mistake that he made in his whereabouts. It seems to be a thing that 2 or 3 or 4 Frenchmen have done recently, and there's no excuse for it. They've got to wise up the whereabouts for testers, and he had to serve some time for that, Johan Alfredo. No, there was no positive test return, but he wasn't there when they came to test. He'd been doing something else. Same happened to Sebastian Turgot, actually, although he was moving house and giving them a different address, and they went to the old one. So they've got to be a bit more on the ball, but Alfredo is a very talented and very aggressive rider, Sean.
Yes, but a little bit too aggressive for my liking here, because going out there at the moment, you know, you're in no man's land really, and you're just getting, you know, putting in a big effort here, unless he just wants to get over the climb and knock it off then. And if he does that, well then I think that would be the wise thing to do. But if you try and continue here, you know, they're just going to leave you hang out there on the front, and that's where you're going to see the effort. You will pay for that later into the race.
Yeah, it's a Bolt just hanging off the sorry, is it Challenger or Bolt just hanging off the back here? Yep. Bolt not being able to stay with them, and they're just rolling around now here, Sean. They're not not making any impact whatsoever, and I don't think they want to go any further because they know the peloton is coming streaming down off the Old Quermont towards them. And didn't really see anybody being super aggressive on the Old Quermont like we did last year at the first time around, just to show that they've got the legs. The only person who's given it a go is Johan Alfredo.
Yes, and I think up front we have the Patersberg coming up, very quickly, and that'll be in the minds of the leaders. We have the 4 riders here, the 5 riders, sorry, leading at the moment. They will try and continue on, get to the Patersberg, and if you can get onto the Patersberg, or better again, get over it, well, then that would be nice, because there's a little bit of time then where you can have a bit of a recovery. And of course, if you get caught before you come to the Patersberg and there's some action on the front of the bunch, then you're going to have difficulty staying in contact, staying in a good position. So for our leaders at the moment, I think the objective will be keep on riding, keep working together, and try and get to the Patersberg before they're swallowed up by the main peloton.
Patersberg is absolutely vile as a climb. If you've ever done it, either just for fun, or you've been in the sportive, or the first time I did it, I was with a group of extremely motivated ex-riders, journalists and so forth, a lot of them very, very fit indeed, and we came running down into it. It's another 90-degree bend to get into it, and it's like an absolute wall. It's one of the better surfaced climbs here. It's not like the Koppenberg, for example, which is a bit lumpy, or was. They've done a lot with it, but the Patersberg is an absolutely vile climb. Very, very steep indeed. And for me, it's on this new circuit, Sean, I think it's the one that really, at the Old Quermont, it whittles them down to a handful, but the Patersberg is the one that really gets it down to 2 or 3 because it's so steep.
Yes, well, it is steep, and to get into the Patersberg in good position, it's very important. If there is a problem in the peloton where a rider has a problem, well, then the whole thing is going to come to a standstill, and that's a situation you don't want to be in. And we can see here, there's just a number of teams want to stay to the front, keep their leaders in a good position, and get them onto the Patersbergs and get through this time at least without having any problems.
73 kilometers to go, and we're essentially now almost on the loop which they use for the end of the race. Now here we go, right hand turn into the Patersberg. Just watch this. This is horrible, straight onto the cobblestones, well surfaced, but you just can't get any idea of how steep this is from here. Look at this. Maximum of 20%, and it's just an absolute killer, this one. This is where on the one of the climbs that won the Ronde van Vlaanderen Sportief, it's just a complete carnage, absolute mess, as Thomas Voeckler wants to lead them into the Patersberg as best as possible, with Jack Bauer and Johan van Summeren of the Garmin squad just behind him. Wants to keep himself out of the way. They can grind to an absolute halt. You will see some riders who are beginning to suffer. By the time they get round to the second ascent of this Patersberg, they'll just be hanging there and almost come to a standstill. Everybody a bit keyed up now, Sean. You can see there's a bit of tension in some of the bodies here.
Yes, well, this is a tension moment for a lot of riders, and you get over this, you get through it, and then it will settle down possibly again, depending on what happened for the rest of the climb. If there's some action on the front of the bunch, we could see it just slowing down quite a bit again, but it is a moment where everybody is a little bit taking attention, and you have to do that, and some riders that bit more than others, and it's looking pretty relaxed as they turn into the climb. We could see Voeckler there leading, but then settling down in the peloton again. But it is a difficult climb. We've seen the percentage there, a short one, around 400 meters, a little bit less, but it's always an energy-sapping one.
On the Tour of Flanders, when you were riding, Sean, obviously there's some climbs that aren't in this edition of the Tour of Flanders that you would have done. Which was the hardest for you?
Well, I think every year difficult climbs, they differ. You go through a little bit of a difficult patch, and you can have a real difficult climb, and the following year you get through with much more ease. And that is bike racing. At this point, with still over 70 kilometers to go, you could go through a difficult patch for 10-15 kilometers, but then you recover and you really feel good again, and you're hoping the time you do have a difficult period that that the race doesn't really get too active, and you get a chance maybe to get through. And as I said, 10-15 kilometers down the road you can feel much better. So every year, the climbs, they differ, and one year you feel the Patersberg is a real killer, and other years it was the Oude Quaremont. But certainly in the final, when you get into the final 50 kilometers, then they all start to get a bit difficult.
Poor old James van Landenschut at the back here, struggling to get over the top, really grinding it out. Wesley Creeder just ahead of him. Or Secon. He's struggling to get over this time, Sean. I don't think he's going to be there next time around.
Doesn't look like that he's going to make it in the peloton the next time we come around to tackle this one.
Yeah, I would have thought not. 70k to go. Our men still persisting at the front are Marcel Zeberg and André Greipel of Lotto Belisol, Martin Challengy of Blanco, Kwiatkowski of Quickstep, and Laurens de Vries of Topsport. Topsport used to be all black and white with a yellow roundel in the middle. It's now all blue and white with a yellow roundel in the middle. There it is in front of you. Hey, he's having a good race, Laurens de Vries, Sean. He's been in this break all the way from the time it went.
Yes, he's having a good race, and for a rider like de Vries to be up here, I think the team will be happy with his performance today. In the teams that don't have a big favourite with a chance of doing something in the final, getting into a top 10 place, well then tactic would be make sure there's somebody in the breakaway, and they've been a number of riders handpicked, and they will be given the tactic, given orders. You have to try and get into the break, and you're the guys who are expecting to be going in the groups that are getting away in the very early part of the day, and they have done that in Topsport Vlaanderen, and they've got a man up there and good exposure for the team and for their sponsors.
Topsport Vlaanderen is really a sort of development team for the Flanders region. Has some very good riders. It's been around for a while now, and Walter Planker is the director sportif today on the race. He knows a thing or two about this race. There's Russell Downing at the back, waiting for the car, I think. 39 seconds only is the gap. I tell you somebody we haven't mentioned at all, Marcus Burkhardt. Not a bad bet for an attack in the late stages here, Marcus Burkhardt. Riding up towards the front at the moment in the BMC colours of black and red. And he's a good rider, Burkhardt. 40 seconds of gap, 68 kilometres to go. Just a little bit of a nerf into the ditch for Maxim Iglinski. No real problems. Straight into the back of the peloton, but shows he possibly shouldn't be in the back. Iglinski, winner of Liège-Bastogne-Liège. That's where he was. Just got a little bit of a touch and a tumble onto the grass. Could have gone a lot further, of course, down the ditch, but he didn't. And Iglinski will count himself lucky that he didn't get any further down. Seems to have just settled down a little bit now, Sean, as the gap is now at 50 seconds.
Yes, it's, I think it's the calm before the storm now. We're coming, of course, to the Koppenberg, which is 64 kilometers to the finish. So they feel that, first of all, the breakaway out front, 53 seconds of advantage, they're not too concerned about that. I think the teams, they feel they can close that down without any problem, but it will start to get a little bit nervous again, because the Koppenberg, it's again, position, and there's so many riders want to get into that top 30 positions in the peloton, and that means the pace will just open up as we get closer to the Koppenberg. Koppenberg,
legendary climb here in the Tour de Flanders, and other races in this area. It's not just the Tour of Flanders that use these bergs, of course. Lots and lots of races in this area use them, but it's most famous for this one. There's a magnificent piece of archive footage of Roger de Vlamingh and Eddy Merckx. De Vlamingh, the gypsy, the great rival of Merckx in the classics, riding shoulder to shoulder up the Koppenberg ahead of everybody else, just giving it absolutely everything, just to psych each other out more than anything else in the wet. It has been the stamping ground of so many great riders and attackers on the Koppenberg, but things do go wrong there. Anything ever go really wrong for you on the Koppenberg, Sean?
Many times. I think I cycled up the Koppenberg, made it up on the bike 3 times during my career, so there was a lot of wrong points. Yeah,
there's a lot of riders still have to get off and walk, especially when it gets wet, of course. It's absolutely dreadful. They have relaid the cobble sets over the last 3 or 4 years, and it's a little bit smoother than it was, but it's dreadful in the wet, this one. Coming up to the Koppenberg. Remember, if you want to come over here and ride these roads, you can. It's like everything else. There is a sportive, but you know, you don't have to go and pay your money to do a sportive. Why don't you just come over with your mates, get a couple of bikes in the car, and get out and ride them? That's all you need. A map. Go to the Centrum Ronde van Vlaanderen in Oudenaarde. Maybe stay in Oudenaarde for a couple of days. They've got plenty of maps of cycle routes, and they will be there. And here we go. Koppenberg, 22% maximum. Listen, if I can ride up this, most people can ride up this. So come out here and give it a go. It's a lot less rough than it used to be, but still you'll find some riders who are getting off and walking at this point just because of that squashing up concertina effect of everybody else. Maybe if they just focused the camera a little bit, it might help. Gets steeper as the difficulty with this climb, Sean, is it just gets steeper as it goes up, doesn't it? There's no lumps in the middle of it. It just ramps up as it gets to the top.
Yes, it just the gradient just builds all the time. I suppose the advantage today is that it's, you know, good and dry, and when it's wet with the gradient you've got being so severe, well then difficult to get traction, and if you have to just knock off for a moment to get moving again, that is the real difficult one. In a group like this is a perfect situation. You know, quite a lot of room here to make it up, but back in peloton, even under dry conditions, you know, it can always have problems, and we will see, you know, the main bunch will really make a sprint into the bottom of this one for to keep position, and all riders, you know, will want to be there again in the top 20-25 riders.
Here we go, aerial shot of them. They want to be there in the front. Not the great stamping ground perhaps it was for the gladiatorial battles, with this new loop at the end, which is really where the selection is made now. Jeff Smith from France keeps asking the same question about, we saw Mathieu Ladegnu a little bit earlier on getting a front wheel change. What about the fork, the tabs on the end of the forks, the sort of so-called lawyer's lips on the forks? The rule is, if you build them without them, it's fine. If your bike's built with them, you can't file them off. It's simple. Burkhardt at the front for BMC. Kinziato's got back on after his puncture. And wait for it. Who's going to be the first one to tumble sideways? Right in the middle! Yes, indeed. Go for it, sir. Oh. There we go. This is the Koppenberg we all know and love. We do. They don't. Is that Heinrich Hausler trying to get back on again? Oh! Quel bordel. It's always happened every year, Sean. They know it's going to come, and some guys can ride all the way up. So it's not, you know, if somebody falls off in front of you or somebody just gets a wrong wheel, there's nothing you can do about it. You're all on off the bike and walking. Well,
you know, the chance of somebody getting into difficulty and not being able to keep momentum, you know, it is huge. And we could see there Cancellara, actually, Chavanel, you know, they were not
happy.
They were just in front of that group, and you know, it's all about as well experience and to be able to feel, you know, where you need to be, not maybe too much at the front of the group, but still you have to be in a position on this very difficult time of the Koppenberg, where you feel that, you know, the riders in front of you are going to make it all the way.
Yep, Lars Bohm up safely, Geraint Thomas up safely, Stein Vandenberg's just got up nice and safely. Tozzato, we can see Rohat coming over the top. And some riders are going to have a real problem getting... Oh, Nicky Terpstra in problems on the left-hand side. Terpstra would be good for Paris-Roubaix next week. Was very good last year. There's Johanna Fredo of Francis Dujeur with the Cloverleaf coming up. Maxim Miglinski in the blue of Astana. And riders fighting to get back. Jack Bauer in the centre, the bright blue of Garmin.
Stan de Volder.
Yeah, Stan de Volder, yes, going through. Stan de Volder, double winner of the Tour of Flanders, had some very, very lean years indeed. Russell Downing just coming over the top here, ahead of Ian Stannard. There's Wagner, the German, for Blanco. Downing gritting his teeth. Stannard in the British colours. Gustav Larsson in the vile sunglasses. Danilo Hondo, the German sprinter roadman, coming over the top. There's Nicky Terpstra on the left-hand side in the Dutch champions jersey. Bernard Eisel just sitting nice and comfortably, relaxed. He's always relaxed, is Bernie. For Sky over the top. And these are now the tail enders. Anybody really got caught out that we haven't seen yet so far? There's Yet Sebol on the left-hand side, been in the breakaway all day today. There's Stuart O'Grady, comes through. Johan Genet and Vincent Jérôme of Europcar. Gert Steegmans. I'm not surprised he's down there. He's a big lad to haul his backside up that thing, I tell you. Kwiatkowski, Chalingi, Greipel and Zeeberg still out ahead, along with the final man in the breakaway, who is Laurens de Vries. They keep forgetting to put Laurens de Vries up there. Maybe they don't know who he is. Maybe they don't think he's worth it, which is a bit unfair. They work well together. They didn't have any problems, of course, because they can just keep going. 63 kilometers to go. The Koppenberg is now overshorn, and now it's really going to start, I think. They're going to start positioning themselves ready for the final.
Yes, that would be the normal the tactic, but again, you never know, and you always have to be so much careful that, you know, you're in a position to rectify a situation if a team decides to take it up.
Martin Chalingi from Blanco at the front. Through the second of the feed stations. Nice and easy for these men. How long, Sean, do you think, even if they had a reasonable gap, how long would these guys ride together before they start looking at each other and trying to shed bodies here from this group?
Well, you would expect them just to continue working together for a long time. We can see 110 at the moment, but it's really the peloton decides, you know, how long they are going to stay out in front. And I'd be surprised if we see, you know, a downtime where this group, the breakaway, will be allowed to pull out any great advantage at this moment. And, you know, minute and a half, 2 minute advantage at this point is not going to take them very far, because you know, we're going to come to, you know, a number of more of the climbs, and I think from here on the peloton is just going to be action all the time, and the gap is only going to come down, I think, from here on.
1 minute and 7 seconds, possibly the last hurrah for the breakaway as everybody starts to get it together after this feed station. They'll be allowed another 10-15 seconds of an advantage, just to eke out there, and then when they start to get it together after this feed station, it'll come down very, very quickly indeed. Peter Sagan in the middle of his shot, or just on the right hand side now. He's drifting over a little bit in the Slovakian jersey, former Slovakian sorry, he's got the Slovakian stripes on the back of his Cannondale jersey there, the green jersey. Fabian CANCELLARA just ahead of him, and Geraint Thomas between them in the sky colours of black with a blue stripe down the middle. There's some big names up the front. I wouldn't be surprised if Thomas doesn't do a good ride today, Sean.
Well, looking good at the moment, and certainly he's capable of doing it. The distance, you know, it's something maybe that he hasn't, you know, been doing a lot. But but again, I presume he has done the training, you know, to be able to handle the distance they've got today. And it'll be interesting to see at this point. He looks comfortable enough, but there's a lot of riders there still in the bunch. But the interesting one is we could see Peter Sagan just riding there with Cancellara in his view, 2-3 bike lengths ahead of him, and I think, you know, that's going to be the case a lot from here on in. Just keep Cancellara in your sights, and if he's going to make a move, as we have seen in the past, Sagan can react very quickly, and you cannot allow Cancellara to take an advantage 10-15 seconds, because to close him down then it's in the wheel immediately, and it looks like Sagan is, you know, working the tactic, just keep him in your sights all the time.
Yeah, not surprised. The group is getting fairly whittled down now, because the Koppenberg has shed a few bodies. Well, a bit of a counter-attack now. It's Selvaggi, Mirko Selvaggi, and Sebastian Minard are the two riders here. Sebastian Minard at the front here for the Edua to La Mondiale squad, and it's Mirko Selvaggi, the Italian rider, just behind, trying to get away for CANCELLARA. That's good. Good move. It's Hayden Ralston in the black helmet, in second in that little line of Radio Shack riders, just controlling the pace. They've done a good job so far controlling things at Radio Shack for Fabian CANCELLARA. He and Peter Sagan are the overwhelming favourites. It's meant that really the Cannondale squad haven't had to do an awful lot of work so far, Sean.
No, haven't had to do any work really. We did see one Cannondale rider. He was there with the riders from Radio Shack when they were closing that breakaway, which was 12 riders. But apart from that, we haven't seen them having to do much or doing much. But you know, there have been no real panic buttons pushed at all in this race yet. So it'll be interesting to see if Cannondale have a number of riders. I haven't seen a lot of them up to the front, but this group of big favourites, there's still 50-60 riders still in there.
Under the 60 kilometre to go mark, with the silver helmet of Marcel Zeeberg, Hayden Ralston of Radio Shack, the big New Zealander on the front here. Ralston very strong as an ox, this man, really pushing hard. I think it's Cinziato we'll find behind. Manuel Cinziato, the Italian riding for BMC. Can't see him. Yes, it is. It's Manuel Cinziato. And pushing on, looks like Sebastian Turgot of Europcar, along with Thomas Voeckler here towards the front. Voeckler has shown his hand all the way through, Sean, although that is his style of riding, isn't it? He's not the sort of guy who lurks in the background and waits for something to happen. He's an aggressive rider. He rides at the front regardless.
Yes, he does. He shows his form, you know, a bit too much, and he has been up there a lot today. And the team also, they have been, you know, very much to the fore, pulling the bunch along and getting Voeckler in a position as we went on to some of the important climbs in a good position. And you know, Voeckler is still up there, and I think he's the one that, you know, we could see in the final. We should see in the final. I think his form is pretty good. Is he doing too much riding, you know, maybe a bit too close to the front? You can see at the moment he's up there in third position. Not really the place to be if you want to conserve energy as much as possible. You need to be back there in 10-15 position and getting, you know, real good drafting and get pulled along by the riders who are leading the bunch.
Are you going to tell him that, or am I? I don't think he's ever going to do that.
I think it's too late.
It's too late in the day, I think, for Tommy Voeckler. Well, it's not. At least it's not wet here. They trundle over the train lines. Big long section of cobbles here on the flat. And they'll be heading back towards the other Quarmont at some point, fairly shortly. This is Steenbeck Dries. They've just come over. Not so far from Brakel, but they're heading back towards Ronde and the Kloosbergen and up to Quarmont again. Ah, big dig. Big dig. One minute for our breakaway riders, and suddenly, Sean, there's going to be a little bit of action here, I think.
Yes, well, we can see Quick Step, you know, firing a man. It looked like Ilio Kazin, the track specialist, going in the attack there, and it's something that we have, you know, touched on a number of times. You know, the tactic now for the teams, will they, you know, start throwing men out the front and trying, you know, get another breakaway going. 58 seconds at the moment for our leaders, and you know, there's some of the teams realize that the peloton are just, you know, keeping tabs on the situation, allow them guys to hang out there, and for that reason we can see that some of the teams like Omega Pharma Quick Step are starting to, you know, push riders off the front of the peloton.
Under a minute again for our breakaway. Some riders trying to work their way back here. This is Cannondale. Trying to pull their way back up to the front and not get caught out, get as many riders up to the front as possible. Here are the 5 men in the front. It was Elia Viviani who was being brought back there. Might need his strength. 55 seconds is the gap for our lead riders. These are our leading 5 riders. Kwiatkowski's been out here for a long time, just pedaling along. I reckon Kwiatkowski's there now in case there's a springboard for Sylvain Chavanel. He's a very strong rider. He's just been twiddling away at the pedals, and I think he may well have something in the tank he can still go for it with. Same could be true of these 2 Lotto Belisol riders as well, especially Seberg, because if Jürgen Rollins is going well, then that could be something for him. Jaroslav Popovic in the middle of your shot, behind Hayden Ralston. Cancellara is riding towards the front here, not wanting to concede any ground. Lars Bohm just behind him, the big Dutch former world cyclocross champion, and he's missed out a couple of times in the Tour of Flanders. The 2 other times we've really seen him, he's missed out just towards the end. He's not been strong enough. Let's see if he's got any more in his legs this year. I wouldn't be surprised. Lars Bohm could really pull off a big one at some point. He should do. He's a brilliantly talented rider. Get out of the way. Oh dear. Madam, they're coming the other way. Please stop looking up the hill and start looking down it. Actually, it's a salutary lesson for those people who come out and do watch bike racing, especially if you're watching it for the first time. Please don't look at the way they're disappearing up the hill. Look at the way they're coming at you, even if your favourite rider has gone up the hill. Popovic coming to do another big turn on the front hip. Rear wheel, is it? Or no? Oh dear. Can't change gear. Maybe. Ventoso having difficulties. Actually, they're using the Campag electronic. I think he just got fouled up a little bit there. The Campag electronic gears, very much like the Di2 that Shimano produce. I've used both actually in the last couple of years. I think the Campag one's slightly better, if anything. Shimano won't thank me for it, but they're both much of a muchness, the Dura Race and this one. Very nice though. Oh, Fabian Cancellara. This is Cancellara. Oh, the commentary box is now alight. Everybody saying, what's going on? What's going on here? Now, they've got to get this done quickly. Nicely done by Cancellara, allowing himself to be there. The team will have to drop back. He'll have to get in between the team cars, and also the team will have a couple of riders back there because Fabian Cancellara, rear wheel puncture. Well, remains to be seen if anybody puts the hammer down with 54 Ks to go, because Sean, this man did a bit of a display not so long ago just by riding away from people. They'll be aware that if they can put him under pressure now, it may help.
Yes, well, it is an opportunity, but you know, the way the race has been going, they haven't been really pushing on. I doubt if they will anybody take it up at this moment, but you never know, and Cancellara will have to make his way back into the peloton, which he's doing. You know, we can see there he's still in the drafting of the cars, and I think very shortly he will be in the rear end of peloton.
It's hoping for him. It really is. There we go. Now this will be the magic spanner. Watch this. We've been saying this before. You've not seen it. Here we go. Mechanic leans out of car, fiddles needlessly with rear brake to make sure everything's all right, thus propelling rider up to a higher speed to get back on through the peloton. Ventoso, on the other hand, has got a problem, as we saw with the mechanics.
Well, as a rider, I think you always want to just leave the mechanic have a look at your brakes.
Absolutely,
and see that they are, you know, correctly. Because when you do change, they can, you know, the brake can be a little bit to a little bit to the left or the right, and you know, it is a concern when you have to make a wheel change that the mechanic does check it, and to be sure that it's not touching any bit at all.
That's very true, Sean. But in the process, you get faster.
Well, what can you do? You have
you
have to go to the car. You have to leave your hand on the window of the car, and the mechanic, you know, he just puts his hand on the back of the rider, and you know, just adjust if needed. In the situation there with Cancellara, I think it was, you know, a real quick one, and there was no need for any adjustment.
Well, no, it could have been a disaster, but no real problems for Cancellara. He coolly got to the side of the road, took a drink while he could. The way you do it, the form you do it is, you've got a puncture, you need to get to the side of the road. You have to stop on the right-hand side of the road. There's no other way. You've got to stop. It's in the rules. There we are. Get on the right-hand side of the road. But you stick it in the sprocket with the least number of teeth. That is the biggest gear, the 11 sprocket. And you make sure that when you get to the side of the road, if you can loosen the back brake off and maybe even undo the wheel and take it out ready, the mechanic can come along, put the other one straight back in, and you're back on the bike. You can save a great deal of time by preparing yourself for the mechanic to arrive. Sometimes you see it, Sean, with less experienced riders, younger riders, people who are in a panic situation. They don't do that. They don't get in the right gear. They panic a little bit, and sometimes the mechanic panics, and you can just lose so much time on a wheel change.
Yes, well, we see often the riders, they make a mistake. When you have a flat tire, they stop immediately, and you know, if you can continue on and you're not, you know, in danger, well, then you continue on rolling along, and that way you lose as little amount of time as possible off the rear end of the peloton, and that is very important. And of course, the mechanic, there's nothing you can do about that. You're always hoping the mechanic will get a good change, but again, sometimes it takes a little bit longer. You know, the best mechanics, the most experienced mechanics, sometimes it goes a little bit wrong for them. But we'll see with Cancellara there, it was, you know, quite a good change, and he was back on the bike very quickly.
Vertovsky in the don't try this at home, folks, descending position. Reduce that frontal area. And one of the quick step riders relieving himself and reducing his frontal area at the side of the road there. Heinrich Hausler now riding for I Am Cycling. Hausler has had a bit of an up and down career. And well, Hausler had a really good season with Cervelo Test Team a few years ago. He really challenged quite strongly for a number of races, and also for the following year with Garmin as well. But he's not really had the massive successes that perhaps his talent had shown earlier on in his career, Sean. Nice to see him in this group still.
Yes, and I think he's you know, showing signs of good shape this year. Hopefully he will get a bit better as the season goes on. but he's had a knee problem. I think that was the beginning of his problems when he was going well 2 years ago. Then he got a little problem with his knee and had to take a bit of time out, and never seemed to be the same as strong as he was at his best time.
Welcome back live. 200 kilometers plus now under the wheels of these riders is Stan de Volder, another winner of the Tour of Flanders, twice a winner here. He's had a lean couple of seasons, and getting that front wheel in, all important now. It's been quite busy. The mechanic from Radio Shack, de Volder, looking to be back in much better shape than he has been in the past. Back with the old crew. Laurens de Vries looking as though he's beginning to suffer here. There's some tired legs in this quintet at the front now. Merkel Silvaggi and Sebastian Minard behind, trying to bridge this gap over to these five, but the peloton are not very far behind. You can tell that. Why? Because look at the amount of motorcycles and cars now swamping these lead riders. It's just a matter of time now, Sean, isn't it? They can sense that they're being borne down on by the peloton.
Well, I think they realise it for quite a lot, quite a number of kilometres, and you're just hanging out there, and you continue on. And the reason they do that is they say, well, we'll get to the next climb, we'll get through that before the bunch comes to us, and it's a good situation to be in. But again, you have to make the effort, you have to keep on riding to do that, and they are getting tired because they've been out there for a long time. And 57 seconds on an advantage. They know if there's somebody who ups the pace, a team who wants up the pace back in the peloton, well, then that gap will be just closed down immediately.
Alenghi. Oh, Blanco. See him in many breaks. A very early, good early career on the Tour of Belgium. And a couple of others as well. Did he not win King High Lake? I can't remember. Very good rider. He was with Skill Shimano at the time, and he really did get a lot of publicity, and a lot of people wanted him in the team. He didn't settle particularly well at Lotto when he went to there, and settled a lot better where he is now. Whoop, here we go. Next to the counter-attacks going, we'll get 2, 3, 4 men maybe. We'll have a go here to try and get across. It's for the big favourites teams. Pozzato's team, we can see their Lampre now coming towards the front as well. Hayden Ralston of Radio Shack and the Quick Step team of Sylvain Chavanel, just to keep it rolling along, Sean, at a decent pace, just to try and not have too many problems as they go once again into the Eau de Quarmont.
Yes, well, the teams with the big favourites, of course, like Radio Shack, like the team of Chavanel, they are, just going to keep on rolling as it has been for a number of kilometres now on the front of the bunch, and get as far into the final as possible until they come to the moment when maybe Cancellara wants to go in the attack. So it's suiting the big teams at the moment, but there's other teams with ideas, and they are the ones who are trying to attack and trying to get off the front end of the peloton.
Yeah, I was just correcting myself there. Of course, they're in the Kloosbergen now. The Eau de Quarmont comes up after Quarmont itself, the village. This is Arnaud de Mer and Saramontins. Arnaud de Mer, well, he's in good shape then. Still up here with the leading group, Sean, as a sprinter. That's a young sprinter. That's a very good ride.
Yes, it's a good, and he has been doing well. I think in the 3 days of the Pan, we did see him on the fourth stage on Tuesday. He was real close to getting the stage victory, just pipped or held off, let's say, by Peter Sagan. So, he is in good shape, and to be up here at this moment, because over 200 kilometers covered, to be thinking to go on the attack, because you have to have energy left in the tank before you're going to think and try and get out of the peloton, and seeing him do that, he must be feeling pretty okay.
Stan de Volder comes past Ventoso into the back of the group again, and de Volder will have to work his way up towards the front. has to do some serious work, I would imagine, for Fabian CANCELLARA, but there's always the outside bet that he can do something himself, as Hayden Ralston's doing a fine job here. The rider just behind him is the multi-talented Elia Viviani for Cannondale. Faulkner still looking comfortable, but still right up towards the front. Chavanel on the far right-hand side just cruises around Kinziato in that sky blue of Quick-Step. All sorts of problems, Ventoso here. Now what's he after? Has he still got gear change problems? Nope, he's after some sustenance. Under 50 kilometers to go here. It's the 100th year of the Ronde van Vlaanderen. And 96th race itself has been disrupted now and again, but 100 years this race has been going. The man was the first winner back in 1913. Only 26 men contested the Tour of Flanders, but they wanted to put up something in the Flandrian heartlands here against Liège-Bastogne-Liège and Flèche on the Walloon Classics. It was very much a source of pride, and it's become the biggest thing you could possibly find in Flanders. There's even a museum about it. Not just the little tiny museums as you get in Flèche or Liège, but it's a massive, great big thing. The Centrum Ronde van Vlaanderen in Oudenaarde, and well worth a view if you can go there. Sébastien Minard and Mirko Silvaggi joined forces with the remaining riders in the breakaway, but they only have 32 seconds of an advantage over the peloton. 40-odd kilometers to go. As we this time when we get to the Hors de Quaimont, I think the selection is about to be made, Sean.
Well, I think we will see, yes, you know, a lot of riders losing contact first of all, and again, then it depends on the race out front of the peloton. You know, if there's action and, you know, somebody really pushes up the pace, well, then it will explode that group of big favourites, and that is the question. When is it going to, you know, take off, and when are the big teams or the big favourites really going to take the race in their hands and push the pace? You never know. And as a rider, if you're a rider who are just waiting and trying to follow the big favourites, that's something you just have to follow the race and be in position at the right time.
Well, Seberg is continuing to work hard at this. 32 seconds is the gap at the moment as they come into Quaimont itself. The top of the old Quaimont climb comes at 37.8 kilometers still to go, and then they're back onto the Paterberg almost immediately. Hey, Hayden Ralston's done a good job here, Sean. All day he's been close to the front, and he's done the last, what, 10-12 kilometers by himself here.
Yes, he's been on the front a lot of the time, and still looking, you know, quite comfortable, you know, keeping the pace, you know, quite high, and he's that sort of rider, of course, and that's the reason he's within that team. They know they can depend on him for the races, the big classics, where, you know, he can rectify a situation. If there's a break out front, he can just ride kilometre after kilometre on the front, and you know, he is the one, I think, from the team who has been the most pace setting on the front.
Yep. Jaroslav Popovic has done a fairly good job as well. Good to see Kevin Holzmans up towards the front, former Quick-Step. Oh, just as I was about to say, for this team here, Fantini. Oh, no, it's Oscar Gatto. I was just about to mention Oscar Gatto and say good to see Holzmans riding towards the front for Oscar Gatto. And there is the cat himself. Gatto having to push in. And he's going to have to work hard to get back there. Hopefully he will. That's Holzmans looking behind. And Gatto saying, I've got a puncture. Nicely done by the teammates there, though, Sean.
Yes.
Pretty good going.
Yes, well, it was communication very good, because we could see Holzmans riding in the front, and Gatto just, you know, called him, and immediately he got the message, pulled over, got his wheel out very, very quickly, and got Gatto back on the road again, because you need to do that at this point now. You know, wait for the team car, and again, it depends on the team car how how far back it is within the cavalcade. So I think a very quick and a very sleek change there by the two riders.
Good, yeah, good stuff. As Viviani still working hard at the front for Peter Sagan, the Slovak champion, in the centre with the blue, red and white stripes down the middle of the Cannondale jersey. Now the pace is really up as they're getting in towards the bottom of the Ronde de Quarmont. Hayden Ralston's done a lot of work. Typical Thomas Voeckler, head up, looking around, seeing what's going on. Geraint Thomas, the Welshman, hands on the drops. They're charging in towards the Ronde de Quarmont now. "24 seconds, the gap here with 40 kilometers to go. Right in the middle, looking over his shoulder to see where Fabian CANCELLARA is. Gregory Rust. Vacansoleil trying to bring men up towards the front. Working to bring, oh, you can see Chris Bokmans is still in there, which is interesting. The man to watch out for there is Björn Lookemans, though, number 184. I think Lookemans, actually the three big outsiders for me, I mean real outsiders. We're not talking the Sagans, Chavanels of this world and Cancellaras. Oscar Gatto, Luca Paolini and Björn Lookemans for me. Also in there you could also put Van Avermaet and possibly even Stannard and Thomas, but I put my neck out for those three real outsiders. Oscar Gatto, well, he had a real wheel puncture. He's back in the group now. Edvald Boasson-Hagen, clearly in good shape here, Sean. We've not seen much of him. He's done a very good job at hiding away, but he's there in the Norwegian champions jersey with the white helmet in the second row of riders.
Yes, he is very much there, and you know, in a good position at the moment. The question is, how is he feeling? Because there is still, what, 45, 50 riders in this group. So there's, you know, most of the big favourites and the ones maybe a little bit, you know, just outside favourites are all in here. So, you know, I think we have to wait a bit more and see who is, you know, really feeling good. And we haven't had any action really to put anybody under pressure in this group, and it will be interesting to see as we go to the Ronde de Quarmont the next time round. Will it be a bit more action the last time, because the main peloton just really cruised up the last time, but now we're getting into the stage where we're coming you know, to the 38 kilometers to go. It's the finale, and that's the time you would be expecting some more action from the bigger teams and the big favourites.
Wow, look at this at the front. Burkhardt on one side, Van Avermaet on the other. And the right in the middle of the shot. We're looking for number 96 if Luca Paolini is in there. Maxim Meglinski, another man that's a danger man. There's some really big names in this front two or three groups here. Really big. Burkhardt on the left-hand side in the black and red, another good rider. Juan Antonio Fletcher for Vacansoleil in the blue and white and yellow. Orsiberg is being tailed off here as they're onto the Ronde de Quarmont. Once again, Kwiatkowski. Marco Silvaggi leads them at the moment here, this group for Vacansoleil. Right behind him is Sébastien Minard of AG2R Le Mondial. The two men have been dropped off the back of this group now. Marcel Tsiberg and Laurens de Vries. De Vries, my great friend Richard Olchin reminded me, second in Paris Tour last year, but this is a whole different ball game here. Really is. And here we go. Who is going to make the move here? Look at the favourites are up towards the front. They're all bouncing around on the cobbles here. Kwiatkowski looking very cool and calm, as we suspected he might. Has the look of a Chavanel about him. Sometimes get a bit confused looking at him in the fight. Who's in this group here? Still hanging. Hayden Ralston pushing back a little bit. Kwiatkowski, Silvaggi, Greipel still going well on this. Martin Chilinghi and Sébastien Minard. Oh, Kwiatkowski's there for a purpose, Sean.
Well, he's been real comfortable up there. We've seen him, you know, a number of times when they got to the difficult sections. the cobblestones or the hills with the cobblestones. He looked to be, climbing very comfortably, and still there, just, upping the pace a bit. He is, by far looks the strongest one out in front at the moment.
Silvaji leads Kwiatkowski, then Greipel. Oh, great riding by Andre Greipel. Laurens de Vries gets swallowed up by the peloton as they come. Mathieu Ladagnou is also in this group as well. Good for him. Another rider I really like. The Française de Jeu rider. Very good rider for Madison's and so forth. Good trackman. There's still not an explosion of attacking here at the moment. And it's Gregory Rast who's setting pace once again, just sitting there on the front. Yeah, Sean, they're still just wanting to check who's got the legs, who isn't. They're not really doing anything at the moment. There's still some bodies being shed here, but it's a case of, you said before, just keeping the pace high enough to make it difficult for some people. But there's going to be a lot more people at the top of the Quarmont than you'd expect.
Yes, well, at this pace, there's certainly going to be a big group, and it is a climb where it's not easy, to up the pace to a rate that you can, really blow this group apart. It's the next one, the Patersburg. That's where you can do damage.
Absolutely,
if you have a number of teammates, ride real fast into the bottom of the Patersburg, and if you have a rider who is, very explosive, powerful, like Cancellara, for example, like a Sagan, and if they really turn up the gas then on a Patersburg, well, that will really blow this group apart, and there will be riders everywhere. But for the moment, riding as they are, just a good strong tempo. They are not going to eliminate anybody out of this group of favourites with any possibility of doing anything in this race, because we can see still 50 riders there, and at this pace, we're going to have certainly that amount at the top of the Quarmont again.
Yep, absolutely. Marcel Zerberg about to be taken back by the group. And Edvald Bosenhagen looking very good here in the Norwegian champions jersey, with Sky across the chest, the red jersey with the Norwegian cross in the middle. Peter Sagan on the right-hand side in the green, looking across now to find himself a space. Holds his arms quite wide on the bars. Former junior mountain bike champion, and really the rider of the moment, Peter Sagan. He's an absolutely phenomenal rider, Sean.
Yes, well, we have talked so much about him in the last 2 years, and we mentioned last year the classics, will he be capable of doing it? I think he's already proved this year in the classics that he is, a big candidate in the next couple of years.
So Lotto Belisol, Vakon Soleil, and Omega Pharma Quickstep. One Dutch team and two Belgian teams here in this remaining three-man breakaway as they run up towards the Paterberg for the second time out of three. And it's a nasty now. Here we go, Sean. Finally, they're going to try up with the pace. And it's Lotto Belisol once again. Jürgen Roelands must really fancy his chances today. Is it Jürgen Roelands they're riding for? It must be.
Yes, I think Roelands is the one who has, been showing quite good shape in the last number of weeks, and he is capable of performance there.
Thomas, Geraint Thomas. Geraint Thomas. Oh dear. He's being helped out by the Swannies from Garmin, and they're putting the hammer down in the front. Marcus Burkhardt and Greg van Avermaet put the pressure on as they come in towards the feed station here. Not always a tactic employed, but they've decided to go for it here, Sean.
Yes, well, we could see it was getting to the moment where there was something going to happen. A number of teams wanted to push on the pace, and we are certainly into that stage of the race where it's, really going to push on here. For Geraint Thomas, it's race over, because to get back in here is not going to be possible at all the way it's going out front. And again, Geraint Thomas, we see him in Lanzarin where he got tangled up in a crash at a real vital moment, and again today he's on the deck.
Yep.
Very unlucky.
Yeah, right, going through that second feed station, the pace suddenly went up. Everybody trying to move from the left-hand side to the right-hand side to grab a bottle if they possibly can. Pozzato, I think, almost getting a nerfing there. in the middle of the peloton. But moving across, and the speed went up at the same time, all very difficult. Very difficult. Salvatore Puccio is the Sky rider at the back. He'll be made aware that one of his major teammates, Geraint Thomas, has fallen in that feed zone. It can get a bit scrappy, but that's just a consequence of the pressure being put on the front, Sean.
Yes, well, pressure being put on the front, and you know, there was a lot of activity just before that point, and you know, a number of teams were edging to get to the front and throw in the feeding station at that same time. Well, then, you know, it's always a dangerous moment, and as you said, you know, somebody maybe a little bit over the left and tried to get across to the right-hand side to get something at the feed station, and down the riders go.
Oh dear, oh dear. Coming in towards the Paterberg. It's 90-degree right-hander and then just ramps up. Here we go. Through goes Selvaggi and Kwiatkowski, who for me is the strongest man in this group. But Kwiatkowski has a perfect placing to help out Sylvain Chavanel later on. Here comes Challengy, still hanging in there. Seems to have got a second wind. Sebastian Minard as well. A good finisher here last year. Sebastian Minard. 8 seconds between these two. But the pressure is now really on behind from the BMC squad of Greg van Avermaet. Andre Greipel really suffering now. Well, other teams have taken up the charge at the front. I think Vogler still looks very comfortable, but whether he'll be there in another lap is another thing entirely. Good to see a NetApp Endurance jersey in here as well. I'm not sure who it was. It just flew through the at the front. Well, that's Katusha leading out here, Sean, by the look of it, in that peloton behind us. Selvaggi starts to suffer. Red and white of Katusha, white helmet. Too far to see, too far away to see who it is at the moment, as Kwiatkowski is almost waiting. Looks like Paulini. Fletcher in trouble. Fletcher's dropped out the front of this group now. In real trouble with, they said, I've got a problem with the bike. The CANCELLARA rider, he doesn't have much luck, does he? As Juan Antonio Fletcher, that's for sure. Incredible to see Borut Bozic still in here. Will he be here in another lap is another thing. But Bozic in the group. Other outside, and one of the other outsiders we haven't mentioned at all, Megan Kolb. And again, no real attack, Sean. They've not really gone for it at all. Vladimir Gusev still hanging in here at the back of the group. He's been having to try and keep some sort of contact for a long time. Viviani just ahead of him. And here's Fletcher. Juan Antonio Fletcher in the cars on the right-hand side of your screen. You see he's just getting up onto the rear of... Whoops, there he is. He's right in the middle. What a place to have a problem for Juan Antonio Fletcher. Is he just going to take the bike, a new bike? That's a terrible place to have a problem, Sean.
A real bad moment, and it looks like they seem to be a problem with his rear derailleur, because otherwise he will try and continue on a bit more, but you know, just going to the side, and not going to be easy for him to get back in here with, you know, 33 kilometers to finish. It's going to take a lot of effort, and if you do get back in, well, you know, you pay for that effort at this late moment.
Kwiatkowski, doesn't he look in total control? He is a very, very good rider. Super strong. He's got the amazingly tall figure, lanky figure of Mirko Selvaggi just behind him, and Sebastian Minard looks over his shoulder. He has full company waiting for him. Andre Greipel there, and the rest of the peloton. Look at some of these big favourites in here. Edvald Boasson-Hagen on the right-hand side in the Norwegian Champions jersey. Just behind him in the bright fluorescent yellow is Oscar Gatto in the lime green with the Slovakian champion stripes down the middle. Very attractive jersey, very attractive rider to watch. Peter Sagan, very exciting indeed to watch. Luca Paolini was at the very front of affairs on the last of the climbs. Johan Alfredo is trying to get away again now or trying to get across it. One rider from IAM and one rider from Française du Jeu with 33 kilometers to go. Fabian CANCELLARA up towards the front. They're not going to get much change out of that attack, I have to say. Sebastian Ino is the other rider for IAM. Looks like Turgo trying to come across a terribly flat back style he has. Iglinski is it at the front here for the peloton now. Very difficult to see. We haven't seen a shot of the front of the peloton yet. And they're not going to let anybody get away, I don't think, Sean, at this point.
Well, I don't think anybody of danger. They're not going to be allowed too much of an advantage here. And it's surprising that we didn't see some action there on the last time up the Patersberg, because I was expecting some of the favourites to do something there. We still have a very, very big group of riders, and that's something I think the conditions today are helping a lot of riders. You know, they can just hang in there. But yeah, the big surprise is with just 32 kilometers to go, nobody really going in the attack.
This is the big surprise, though. Jürgen Roelands. We've been talking about him as being one of those guys that perhaps, well, the guy that Lotto Belasov were trying to take towards the finish, but he's decided to try and make a go of it here, along with Johan Alfredo, Sebastian Turgo and Sebastian Ino, 33 kilometers from the finish.
Yes, well, I think it's the moment for a rider like Roelands to do it, because we can see there in the main peloton, it looks like that maybe the big favourites are playing the waiting game, or maybe the big favourites are not as good as we're expecting it to be, and that is also, you know, very possible. And you know, as a rider, you have to start making the calculation. If I wait for the final 15 kilometers and the big favourites go into action, well, then will I be able to follow them? And if you feel, well, no, I'll not be able to, the explosive attack from the likes of Sagan, well, you know, it's the moment to try and do something a bit further out. And Roelands, I think it's the move to do if you feel that's the way, that's the tactic you have to go for.
Challenges up with these riders still again now. Turgo 227 there in the emerald, or the dark green, should I say, of a Europe car. Still Martin Challengi not going to do any work. He's done a whole bunch of it so far. Welcome back. With only 30 kilometers to go in this 100th year of the Ronde van Vlaanderen, the Tour of Flanders. Mirko Silvaggi and Michael Kwiatkowski here have a few seconds gap over 5 chasing riders. More, I think, now. Johan Alfredo, Sebastian Turgo is behind. Martin Challengi is still in there. Jürgen Roelands, the former Belgian champion and a good finisher for something like this, has tried to get away as well. And the peloton, or what's left of it, a group of about 35 riders, maybe a little less, are being led by Astana at the moment. Astana possibly for, well, almost certainly for Maxim Iglinski here. But it's under 30 kilometers to go now, and we are into this sort of hard loop once more of the Oud Quermont and Paterberg. There is Stan de Volder, twice a winner of this race himself, and has had some very lean times recently, and seems to be back in decent shape. The main favourites are still in the peloton, waiting for their opportunity on this group. Fabian CANCELLARA is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back. It is Iglinski who's 4 back for Astana, number 26. Iglinski a little tumble about 30 kilometers ago. No real significance, just sort of flopped over sideways on the grass, really. But they're racing pretty hard, Sean, because nobody's really got any chance of getting away, and they're all sort of much at the same distance all the time.
Yes, it is very difficult to get out of the peloton, because we can see, the pace is being kept pretty high, and riders in between here, our two leaders, of course, and then the rest of the breakaway. But as we can see there, the gaps are minimal at the moment, and everybody is just, the ones out front want to hang on as long as possible. The interesting one is the group with Rollins here. We can see with Turgot, they are freshmen, so they're the ones who are going to push the pace, and the ones who are able to push the pace, because there's a number of riders who've been out all day there. We can see they are totally empty at this moment.
Sebastian Turgot in this group. If they get to the line, well, both Jürgen Rollins and Turgot. Turgot's got a very good sprint on him. Remember, podium finisher in Paris-Roubaix last year, so he comes good at this time of year. Stan de Volder's doing a very good job here, just gradually pushing them back. Thomas Voeckler still in this group, characteristically looking up ahead, looking over the shoulders of all the other riders. Van Avermaet in here on the right hand side of your screen in the black and red of BMC. Just over the shoulder, the right shoulder, the right hand side, you can see there. Peter Sagan not looking troubled whatsoever. Sagan a little bit twiddling away at the gear, with Chavanel on his shoulder as well. Some big names in that group, Sean. All the big names are making their way gradually to the front by the process of elimination, really.
Yes, and still, I think 40 riders in this group, but a lot of them we can see in difficulty on the tail end, just about hanging in there. And the moment we get to the real difficult section, where the pace will be up, I think this group of the big favourites, Cancellara, Sagan and the rest, that will really blow apart. And we haven't had any really major attack at all to test anybody, so there's a lot of guys that are just about there, but the moment we will see a strong attack, I think it will really fall apart, this peloton.
It has to be, sooner or later. Somebody has to put a huge attack in. We've been over the Paterberg. The next climb is the Hoogberg. They're pretty much on now, and then we're back to the old Quamont again, Sean. So they're just going to sort of keep plugging away at it here. The pace is high enough to put some people under some significant pressure. I mean, even Greg Van Avermaet pulling a few faces here. Jürgen Rollins is looking as though he's got the bit between his teeth, though. Comes to the front for the first time. He's now putting some other people under pressure. There's a lot of looking over shoulders going on, though, to see how far back they are.
Yes, I think riders, some are starting to feel the distance they have covered, and they're the ones that are not maybe capable or not wanting to push the pace. But we can see Rollins, he's the one I think with a lot to gain here if he can keep on working at this and try to get the rest to do as much as possible. They're into a situation, 27 kilometers from the finish. If they can pull out 25-30 seconds on advantage, that would be an interesting one. But de Volder, as we can see, still keeping the pace very high, so it's proving difficult for the breakout front to get any sort of a nice advantage.
Yeah, he's not getting much help either. He's just trying to get riders to come through, and they're not willing to do it. Maxim Maglinski's teammates ahead of him going, no, not interested. De Volder tries to look for help, and he's not receiving it here. I tell you, a man who also in this group we've not mentioned so far is Alexander Kristoff. Sean, the bronze medalist from the Olympics. He's in this group. We have not mentioned him at all, but he's a very fine sprinter. Nobody will want to get him to the line.
No, and he's in real good shape. Won a stage in the 3 days of Japan only on Thursday, so he's in top shape. And there's a lot of riders here. Sagan, for example, he's going to just follow this race. He's not going to try and go in the attack, because if he comes to the sprint, he can take it against anybody. Cancellara, the situation is he's going to have to try something, because if it comes down to a sprint, he doesn't have the chances of taking anything like Sagan. So different teams, different riders have different tactics here, and as you go along, the change of tactic will be changing all the time.
Absolutely. Well, I'm still not convinced by this loop. We're back here into the final loop, really, of this Tour of Flanders, and I'm still not convinced it's as exciting to watch on television yet. We've still got 25 kilometers to prove me wrong as the old course. I understand why they did it, but for the riders it may be harder. It's a war of attrition here, but I'm not sure it's more televisually appealing. Heading towards Bergen and Quarmont itself before they get to the Eau de Quarmont. Jurgen Roland's trying hard there, pushing hard at the front. You're right, Sean, maybe what, 35 riders here at the back, possibly a few more. Juan Antonio Fletcher finally gets back. Good man, that's been a long time coming. And rejoins the group here. Fletcher has always the nearly man in the classic, Sean. He's never really made it. Well, he's never had that breakthrough win, which he so much craves.
Well, I think you know, there was a number of years there where he was so close and you know, looked so impressive, so strong. For me, he looked strong enough maybe to be on the top step of the podium, but just never, you know, never managed to pull it off. And you know, he's still a battler, because to come back from the mechanical problem he had, we can see in the, you know, in this group, it's always been going at quite a strong pace, and just, you know, to get back through the cars, get into this main group of favourites again, you know, it's just a big fight.
It's a huge fight. Sebastian Turgot hits the front. Surprise podium man in Paris-Roubaix last year. There we were talking about Tom Bowden taking another huge cobblestone trophy, and this man popped up. He's got another very aggressive rider with him from France, Johan Alfredo. "24 kilometers to go, and Stan de Volder is having to do all this work by himself." They won't be too worried about that, Iglinski's team, Sean, or anybody else at the moment, will they? Just let him get out there and do it.
Yes, let it roll, and you know, they will just leave De Volder, and of course Radio Shack with, you know, a big favourite like Cancellara, they will, you know, leave them do all the work. And you know, the situation is that they have, you know, to keep in contention here, where we can see Sagan, he's getting, you know, a pretty an easy ride at the moment with some of his teammates.
Geraint Thomas is back in the group there. See him on the left-hand side of the screen, because I'm sure it's him in the white glasses and black and blue of Sky. The picture widens out, we'll see it at the moment. That's very, very good riding by Geraint Thomas if he's managed to get back up in here.
It looks like him, and
yep.
to get back after that, you know, as the same situation for Fletcher, to get back, you know, when the race is really, you know, going on out front, you have to be in good shape. And you know, if you're just hanging in this group and you do have a mechanical problem or you do have a crash, well then there's no way back. But anybody, you know, can get back on their bike, chase their way into the leading group here, they have to be still feeling very good.
Certainly do. And there we go. And at the moment, Thomas is definitely back in there. That's good. Look at Paolini. Look at the way he's just lurking around the back there, Sean. He's not putting any effort in at all. I don't think this is going flat out at all at the moment. We've got Thomas back in, we've got Fletcher back in, and Paolini's almost soft tapping.
Well, I think experience as well is a huge advantage here, because with this group of now 30 riders, maybe 35 riders, you can afford to hang on the rear of that at moments. And if you know this route real well, when you're on a big road, a big section, well, you can do that, and then as you come to the important point, once again, you can move up very quickly. And you know, a rider like Paolini with that huge experience, knowing the roads very well, it's possible to do.
Fletcher right here at the front of things, And no, I still think there's some gas to come out of these chaps yet. Cancellara on the far right-hand side. Paolini has now pulled himself up through the peloton towards the front. He needs to do that because we're coming into the final climbs of the Haute Quamont very shortly. Through Quamont itself, need to be in the right position. 2, 3, 4 back is Sylvain Chavanel. Kept himself well out of trouble. Unlike other years, Sean, where he's been very aggressive in this race, he's just kept himself completely hidden up until this point, and he's been in very good form early in the year as Jürgen Roelands and Sebastian Hinault continue to push on at whatever pace they can manage.
Yes, and 30 seconds of advantage with 20 kilometers to go. It's a nice advantage, but again, I'm afraid it's not going to be enough to hold on out in front. And we can see there on the front of the peloton that the pace is going to be upped all the time now, and we're coming to the real vital part of this Tour of Flanders, where I think we should see some action from a number of the favourites.
These two men at the front here, Jürgen Roelands and Sebastian Hinault, are going to hit that Haute Quamont as hard as they possibly can. Look at the jostling that's going on here now. Oh, all trying to find the right space to get into. It's a very tight corner there. Paolini works his way up a little bit now. Oh, wrong gear for Catiano. And Roelands and Hinault still pushing on. You have to be in the right position. 2.5 kilometers in length for the Haute Quamont, and these men are on it now. The bottom of it's all tarmac. As you go up, it turns into cobbles. It's the length of this one that can really kill people off, because if you go at it hard, you'll just see them trailing on down the road. The Patersburg is the one where you get that big explosive kick and just kill everybody else off if you still need to. 19 kilometers to go inside the 20 mark, and Jürgen Roelands and Sebastian Hinault have dropped their fellow breakaway companions. This is total commitment now, Sean. There's no way back from this little move.
No, well, for the two leaders out in front, you have to just keep on working at it, and they're in a position now where they have to commit 100%.
Disaster for Kevin Holzmans. Front wheel, he's just skidded to the side of the road. Look at this. Look, there's nobody there to help him. There we are. Going to do his own thing and try and get anybody's wheel. Look, he's just got one from the side of the road. Perfect. Roelands, big dig. Jürgen Roelands is going for the solo win today. He's going for the long one. With 18 kilometers to go, he's shed Sebastian Hinault, and he's by himself. He's been supported ably by everybody else in Lotto Belisol for the whole of today. They've been pushing the pace along as hard as they possibly can, trying to set this man up, Jürgen Roelands. I'm surprised he went quite so early into a little breakaway, but a clever move. Sebastian Hinault from IAM Cycling here. Behind him, Kwiatkowski, the Polish rider from Omega Pharma Quickstep, who's been in the break for a long time now. Sebastian Turgot, podium in Paris-Roubaix. Johanna Fredo, who already had attack on the Quamont the first time up. He looks strong, Jürgen Roelands, Sean, but you never can tell in this. And here we go, Fabian CANCELLARA, followed by Peter Sagan, and then it's Edvald Boasson-Hagen. This is what we've seen CANCELLARA do before. Just turn the screw, sits in the saddle, and Boasson-Hagen suffering, as is Chavanel. Look how quickly they've eaten up the ground between them and the breakaway men. Sagan's not letting anybody get away. Chavanel is gritting his teeth. Van Avermaet trying to stay in there. I think Langeveld is the rider from Orica. And Vogler about a bike. Oh! Take that, Sebastian. Wallop. He'll just hang in there as hard as he possibly can. Kwiatkowski's looking behind him to see where his team leader Chavanel is here. And Chavanel has lost about 5 or 6 bike lengths, and this is the two men who are really going to contest it today, giving everybody a demonstration of power. Fabian CANCELLARA, hands gripping the bars, followed by Peter Sagan, who's not giving him an inch. And Sagan's not going to help him, Sean. He's just going to sit there. Well, at the moment.
Certainly not for the moment. I think he's going to just wait to get to the top of the Quaremont. And of course, the Patersberg is another one where he will be thinking, if I start doing the pace pulling with CANCELLARA, well, then I might pay for it on the Patersberg. So, what a turn of speed by CANCELLARA. We can see there Bosenhagen, Chavanel, all just giving their 100% to try and stay in contention, stay in the wheels, but nobody able. Only Sagan is the one able to hang in there.
Well, obligingly, Peter Sagan comes through now to do a turn on the front as the elbow was flicked out by Fabian CANCELLARA, and it's Michael Kwiatkowski, the Polish rider, who was in the breakaway. He's the only man able to stay with him at the moment. We said how good he was looking in terms of form, and he's clearly strong. Jurgen Roelands, former Belgian national champion, has made his move. On this final ascent of the Ronde de Quaremont, it's these three men who are chasing at the moment. Kwiatkowski, with CANCELLARA doing most of the work here, and Sagan is suffering a little bit, I think. Sagan is suffering a little bit on the onslaught of the former world time trial champion here. He's having to dig in very hard, Sean.
Yes, and I think that's something, experience, you have to be able to make the calculation, but always so difficult with CANCELLARA to make the calculation because he can be so strong. And Sagan taking just the turn on the front, and then CANCELLARA just coming over him, really turning up on the pace once again. And I think Sagan will not be as eager to go to the front from here on.
No, he certainly will not. Just that little upping of pace, a half a kilometre extra pace from Fabian CANCELLARA sitting in the saddle, and Peter Sagan was almost blown. I'm not sure. The Paterberg, Sean, is CANCELLARA. It might suit Peter Sagan a little more than the old Quaremont.
I'm afraid not, because if a guy has still a lot of power left, and we could see CANCELLARA, he's the one who has the real strength left, and Sagan looked comfortable enough, but again, just at the top of the Quaremont there, when he just turned it on once again, Sagan suffering a little bit, and I think Sagan will be concerned for the next climb.
Fabian CANCELLARA really wants this victory. Last year, overwhelmingly, the head-to-head was between Tom Bonen and Fabian CANCELLARA, but CANCELLARA, in maybe a small nonchalant moment, brought down in the feed zone, and Jurgen Roelands here, having had a go, has decided that he's heard that these two are coming up. He'll try and get back onto these guys, and he won't take a turn on the front if he can possibly help it. Jurgen Roelands joins Peter Sagan and Fabian CANCELLARA. The young pretender in the middle here, 23 years of age. Peter Sagan, possibly one of the most exciting cyclists to be seen for many, many years, capable of so many different types of wins. CANCELLARA, 4 times a world time trial champion, a victor here, a victor in Paris-Roubaix, absolutely brilliant rider, and his immense power able to carry him through. This is the chasing group with Kwiatkowski waiting here for Sylvain Chavanel, getting up to speed again, and Orica Green Edge Langeveld. 15 kilometres is not over yet, Sean. It's definitely not over yet. It's still a big group. If they can pull together, you never know, they could maybe get back towards these 3.
Difficult to see it coming back, because now as we go down to the Patersberg, it's going to be a big struggle for a lot of riders there who are doing the chase and who are capable of doing the chasing on the front of that quite big group. And You know, the guys out front, I think the strong men are on the front here with Cancellara, very impressive, and again, you know, he will just push on the Patersberg, and I think this gap will grow. I'd be surprised if we see anyone making it across to this leading trio.
Magnificent bike handling from this man as well. Just sweep through these corners, as can Peter Sagan. Jürgen Roeland's behind them. Great attempt by him, good move, because he's going to get into this trio towards the line. Remember, there's still 13 kilometers to go when they've got over the top here. Peter Sagan getting a little bit of a break, as is Jürgen Roeland. Here we go. Here we go. And all the motorcycles are moving, positioning themselves onto the Patersberg.
Deep breath.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hold your breath, folks. Here we go. If you haven't finished your cup of tea or your left yet, this is the time to do it. And on they go. Up to 20% of a gradient here. 12.9% average. Now, I think that Peter Sagan may be a little better on this one. The shorter, nastier ones, he can do a little bit more. It depends on the power of Fabian CANCELLARA. Are they going to ride side by side? No, Sagan's just going to let everybody do it. Langeveld is doing the chasing with Paulini just behind. Then Marcus Burkhardt. Lars Bohm is in this group. They're not that far down. I don't think they're that far down. They've got 13 kilometers left to go. Remember, Fabian CANCELLARA, as always, being left to do all the work on the front. If CANCELLARA attacks and starts time trialing away, be it flat, be it uphill, be it downhill, everybody's going to let him do it. Sagan is having to get out of the saddle to keep going here. Jürgen Roeland's is beginning to suffer. He's going to lose the wheel. Bang! Gone is Jürgen Roeland's. Well ridden by CANCELLARA and Sagan. There's going to put some daylight between them as Sagan is suffering. Sagan is suffering, but he's going to make it to the top. Who knows? CANCELLARA is giving it everything. He knows he's got to kill off the Slovak. He's doing it. CANCELLARA goes over the top. Now he's got to get into time trial mode. Sprints out of the saddle, and he's got to get the hands on the drops whenever he can. Only one way to get rid of Peter Sagan, and that's literally to kill him. Get there. Stick the knife in. CANCELLARA gets onto the drops, and it's just a case of 13 kilometers of time trial now. He gave a display earlier in the month, and Peter Sagan, I think, knows he's beaten. Oh, the head is down, Sean. He knows he's beaten.
Well, I think he had that feeling for quite a number of kilometres from the time we came over the Quaremont. You get that feeling in your legs, and you know, it was going to be difficult for for him to stay. But you always hope that you can cling on there, and he did throw in a big battle. But CANCELLARA, once he sensed that the others are weakening a bit, he just goes for it, and the power this guy has, it's so difficult to just cling onto his rear wheel.
Yeah, it's all about the incredible power he's got as a time trialist. He's just an amazing rider. Sagan's going to have to wait for another year unless he can pull something extraordinary out of the bag, and I don't think it's ever going to happen here. Look at the speed of this man. Somebody please buy me a set of Fabian CANCELLARA's legs for next Christmas. Wow. "12 seconds now, the gap between Fabian CANCELLARA, Jürgen Roeland's, and Sagan here. Sagan and Roeland's, well, it was good move by Sagan just to wait for Roeland's, and 2 is better than 1 even in this situation, Sean.
Well, I'm not sure if he really waited for him.
We saw him coming, maybe.
Well, he saw him coming, and yeah, it is just 2 is better than 1 because you get that little bit of recovery time. But the problem being, the 2 of them are suffering. We did see that. I think Roeland's was in a good position to get out in front. If he hadn't been out there, he wouldn't be up in this position at the moment. So that was a good move, first of all, by Roeland's. Sagan, he's going to try, get Roeland's to work. Both of them will try and share as much as possible and try and hold off the chasing group, and that's going to be the difficult one for them now. But CANCELLARA, we can see, so impressive. They're riding 50 plus kilometers per hour at this point, with 250 kilometers already covered.
That's crazy. It's absolutely bonkers. He's so unbelievably strong. But this is his territory, Sean. I mean, he's got there. He can't even see him up the road. 25 seconds. Wow. But I mean, this is his territory. This is now time trialing, Sean, and he's used to going at 99.9%.
Yes, and you know, he has proved in the last weeks that he is, you know, in top shape and getting better as the days go on. And again today, I think, you know, he's just uncontrollable. You know, because Sagan, I think, he was really climbing well there. But when you come up against a Cancellara in this shape, there's nothing you can do.
Yep. Who knows what would have happened if Tom Bowden had been here? But I can't see anybody beating Fabian CANCELLARA today. I don't know about you, Sean, but he is just so much better than everybody else. 30 seconds now, the gap. He is so far up the road. He could get off and walk now. Unbelievable.
Yes, I don't think, talking about Tom Bowden, the shape he's been showing the last number of weeks, I don't think he would have improved that much to be really able to challenge CANCELLARA. Maybe he would have been there on the Patersburg, but again, you know, the power of CANCELLARA, he just put Sagan in difficulty on the Quaremont, then continued on and just turned up the gas again on the Patersburg. And of course, the little time you have to recover there, it's so short, you don't get that, you know, 6 or 8 kilometers to recover. And immediately, you know, Sagan was in difficulty when Fabian CANCELLARA just really turned it up, and he knew, he could see that Sagan was suffering on the Quaremont, sorry, yep. And you know, he had the confidence then just to finish it off on the Patersburg.
I'm not even sure they're going to finish in the top 3, because the rest of the peloton, or what's left of it, is bearing down upon them. 34 seconds now, the gap between Fabian CANCELLARA and just about everybody else, with 9 kilometers to go. I don't know, but I think in my commentating career, this has been the most powerful display I've seen by Fabian CANCELLARA. That was one hell of an attack. He really, really went hard.
Well, I'm not sure if it is the biggest display. We remember a number of years ago he went in the attack, and you know, there was a group out in front with Chavanel.
That's true. I think this is better.
It was 45 kilometers to finish, certainly 40 kilometers to the finish, where today, you know, he just waited and played the waiting game, and you know, when he did go for it, well, nobody really held to match him except for Sagan was the one who was able to cling on for a while. But you know, Sagan, you know, I think really put in a great performance, but you know, an exceptional CANCELLARA today. And in the past, I think CANCELLARA has, you know, ridden away 40 kilometers to go, but circumstances where a lot of riders and a lot of teams with a number of riders to be able to take up the chase, and for that reason he wasn't able to go all the way to finish. But here we can see the gap is only growing.
Yeah, no, I don't agree with you. He's had some great, huge displays before. But as you say, they've been a long way out, and he's ridden away, and he's continued to keep his long-distance time trial. This was, I think, was the most explosive I've ever seen him. He was good on the Quaremont, but on the Patersburg there, I think even he was almost at the very, very edge, giving it absolutely everything. And he destroyed the man who has been touted as the up-and-coming rider, his nearest rival. Peter Sagan just could not hang in there with him, and that is some achievement.
Yes, and you know, it's
different type of riding away, I think.
Yeah, it's you know, CANCELLARA has proved it many times in the past that he can ride from, you know, 40 kilometers out, but he can also wait until the last, you know, 10 kilometers, and when he does go, and the problem is the Patersburg, the outer Quaremont, when you have 250 kilometers in your legs, that just little bit extra, it means a lot, and you only need 2% of more than the rider who is trying to follow you, and if you have got that, you can do it on the Patersburg. And I think CANCELLARA, you know, he just rode away with that little bit more power, more strength than Sagan had.
Well, Fabian CANCELLARA, what more can you say about this man? Multiple world time trial champion, multiple winner of the classics, the cobbled classics. And he's just, I don't know what speed he's doing there. 45, 46, 47k an hour. And just so used to being this magnificent time trials. He knows all about the suffering of this. As my friend Jez Hastings would say, pain and suffering. He knows all about it. Even so, Peter Sagan trying to fight back a little bit. Flicked the elbow for Jürgen Rollins to come through just now and couldn't. Or didn't. I think he couldn't. And Sagan's shaking his head. No good shaking your head, Peter. You've already been beaten. Magnificent position as well on the bike. Just churning away like a turbine. Brilliant. What more can you say? Why don't you hire him for Ampost, Sean, this guy? Do you think he could afford the salary? He couldn't afford any other riders or cars or a bus if you got this man.
I think our budget for the full team and not pay CANCELLARA.
Exactly. Exactly right, too. Really lovely Burke as well. 50k. 5 kilometers to go. 50k an hour. He's going. That is a magnificent ride. Really is. I still think I prefer the old loop, but what a race. What a race. It's a real whittling down process. Another arm flick out from Peter Sagan, and this time Jürgen Rollins can come through there, holding off the rest of the bunch. Luca Paolini tried to get across to them, but he hasn't made it so far. 5 kilometers to go for Fabian CANCELLARA. And barring all mechanical disaster, Sean, this man's going to win another Tour of Flanders.
Yes, it looks that he's on the road to winning, and unless he's a major mechanical problem, you know, he's got the neutral service car already there, so if he gets, you know, a flat tire, he can make a quick change and still possibly hold on out there. And we can see Sagan and Jürgen Rollins there, you know, holding off, and this group still 25 riders, but everybody really suffering, and the riders that are trying to continue making the pace on the front just having difficulty closing the two riders who are only 150, 200 meters out in front.
Amazing. Look who's in here. Heinrich Hausler, Turgo, Gatto is there, Van Summeren, Paolini, all the bigger names, Van Avermaet, all the riders we suspected might be in the mix at the end. Fine ride. Alfredo is in here. Ladagnu is in here. Very good rider. Is it Bonnet is here as well? No. It's Ladagnu. Oh, not another flat. Another flat for Oscar Gatto. Oh dear. Dear, oh dear. 4 kilometers for Fabian CANCELLARA. And you know, they would have loved the Flemish winner here for the Tour of Flanders, but they are so in love with their cycling here, and they really appreciate a performance. And many of these spectators will have dashed out of their houses having been watching it for the last 240k, and they'll all be dashing to the side of the road to applaud this man, Fabian CANCELLARA. The finish here in front of us, you know, Donard, just 5 minutes walk from the Centrum Ronde van Vlaanderen, and this man will have his picture and another imprint on the wall of fame in the museum for the Ronde van Vlaanderen. Good little rallying by these two, Jürgen Rollins and Peter Sagan. They're going to fight it out for second and third, because it doesn't look like at the moment the peloton is going to close them, or the rest of the group is going to close them down. Oscar Gatto back in the group. My word, he's had a lot of bad luck this today, Sean.
Yes, well, bad luck, and you know, at a very, very important time when you're in, you know, the final 50 kilometers of the race, a mechanical, you know, inside that moment is always very difficult to get back in. But the one we see previously, I did not, you know, think that he would make it, but again, you know, he proved that he has to be feeling quite good, and you know, at this late stage to come back into the group, we can see the group chasing our two men on the road here. You know, they're just struggling to keep it going, and when you get a flat tire, make the change 15 seconds, but it's so hard to get back in, and unless you're feeling pretty okay, well, then you don't manage to do it.
Magnificent. This man is absolutely magnificent. Sean, we better say it while we can. You can't see much past this man for Paris-Roubaix now.
Again, when you look at you know, the way he's performing at the moment, when he gets to the point where everybody is starting to feel the distance, everybody is starting to tire a little bit, he just, you know, can't power on there. And you know, if he gets to a position in the race where the wind is out there, well, he's so difficult to control, and in a Paris-Roubaix, difficult to see anybody able to hold on to him in the final 20, 25, 30 kilometers.
Magnificent ride. 1 minute and 16 seconds is the gap he's pulled out. A full kilometer difference between this man here, Fabian CANCELLARA. Last time he won here was in the Swiss champions jersey back in 2010. A fabulous ride that year, and he won Paris-Roubaix as well. But oh, what a magnificent performance. Having failed to pull it off last year, kept himself well out of trouble this year. Got to say, his teammates did a very good job this year. Sean Hayden Ralston was excellent. Gregory Rast was excellent, as was Stan de Volder.
Yes, the team did a good job, kept the lid on things, as they say in cycling terms, when it needed to be, but there was never any panic moments, because you know, the way the race worked out, so they controlled it without having too much difficulty, and you know, got to a point in the race where CANCELLARA just could take it up, and nobody with an advantage out front who looked like they could ever go on and challenge him for the victory when we were inside that final 25-30 kilometers.
And we are now inside the final kilometer here of the 100th year of the Tour of Flanders, Ronde van Vlaanderen. And Fabian CANCELLARA has given us a display of incredible power and time trialing. He made his move on the final ascent of the Old Quamont. Peter Sagan was the only rider to really be able to go with him. He whittled it down to just himself and Sagan in the end by the time they got to the Paterberg. And he absolutely gave Sagan a stuffing in the last 25 meters of the climb. Sagan hung in there. I thought for a moment they were going to go up there side by side, because it might have favored him a little bit more, Sagan. It was steeper and shorter, but no. Fabian CANCELLARA put in, I think, what the biggest single effort I've ever seen him do, and he just destroyed Peter Sagan. Magnificent ride by Fabian CANCELLARA. He takes, look at the distance between himself and everybody. Over a full kilometer he's pulled out. That is a magnificent victory, and he goes down, as if he wasn't already, as one of the all-time great classics riders. Fabian CANCELLARA, 6 hours, 5 minutes and 58 seconds in the saddle to gain eternal glory here with a brilliant ride against his rival, Peter Sagan. What a magnificent win. Well, the question is, who's going to sprint and take second and third? Oh, that was a fabulous win, and 1 week to Paris-Roubaix, and I think he's going to do the same there, unless there's absolute disaster. On form, he must be the big favourite now. Rollins and Sagan are going to sprint it out, I think, for second and third. Both of them have a good sprint on them. Peter Sagan is possibly the fastest. He's in good form. Jürgen Rollins is clearly in good form as well. Over a minute down, Sagan and Rollins behind them. There's still Björn Lukemans, Luca Paolini, Greg van Avermaet. They're all watching each other. Edvald Bozenhagen in there, Oscar Gatto. Paolini leads it out from a long way and then sits back down in the saddle. John Degenkolb is in there. We mentioned him too. For Argos Shimano. Jürgen Rollins is happy to settle for third. Happy to settle for third. Peter Sagan takes second. An improvement on last year's fifth. Jürgen Rollins takes third. He's just happy to get on the podium. And here comes the finish. It's Alexander Kristoff who gets fourth ahead of Mathieu Ladegnu in fifth place. That's a great result for the Frenchman and for the Norwegian as well. And Paulini, my outside favourite, having let it all out. Let's Christophe finish it off. Well, that magnificent ride. Oh, that's painful, Sean, but you've been in this situation, not here in Tour of Flanders, but just about every other classic. How does it feel to finish off with that much power?
When you win, you don't feel the pain. It's amazing, but when you're in a group trying to hang in there, then it's unbearable. But it's an unbelievable performance. We could see they're riding at 50 kilometers per hour in the final there, and to ride away the gap he put into Sagan, and Sagan, was going at a real good rate. Then he was joined up by Rollins, and the two of them working together. No possibility of closing down on Cancellara. And when you give him 10-15 seconds on an advantage, or 10-15 seconds bike lengths, yeah, it's so difficult to close him down in the final of a classic after doing 250 plus kilometers.
Well, a magnificent victory for Fabian Cancellara. He was up against some very informed riders. Jürgen Rollins, maybe not quite of the same class, but Peter Sagan, certainly in form. A lot of riders targeting this race, of course, but on a good day, on an averagely good day, Fabian Cancellara is a match for some of those on a really good day, and on a super day like today, oh, well, no chance for anybody, and we saw that today. 1 week to go to Paris-Roubaix, and another showdown. And this time around, Fabian Cancellara, unstoppable, peerless victory for the Swiss rider. Well, it certainly made for an exciting finish this time around, Sean, but they do leave the attacks all come right at the end here on the last climb, really.
Well, I think circumstances of the race, you could afford to do that, and Cancellara was making that calculation. If you had a breakaway out front with 5 minutes, well then you might have to go in the attack area to close that down. But the way the race worked out in the final, a little bit of downtime there as well.
Jürgen Rollins,
chapeau.
Third spot, good by him.
I think he calculated very well. He knew if he waited for the very final that he would not be able to match a Cancellara. Sagan, took the decision to go up the road early, and it worked out well. And I think by not doing that, he certainly wouldn't be on the third place of the podium. So, chapeau.
Very much so. Peter Sagan tried his very hardest, makes an improvement over last year. He will again learn from that. He's very much a young rider, still on the up, being talked about as a winner today, even by us, no less than anybody else. A terrific race by him, but in the end it was Fabian Cancellara who was unbelievably strong and just kicked 7 bells, knocked 7 bells out of him on the last 30 meters, 40 meters up the Paterberg. And once he'd gone, he'd gone. No way back, because as soon as he got over to the flat, Sean, and could get into time trial mode, Peter Sagan was never going to be able to stay with him. No, well, when you get to that point in the race, everybody is, so much on the limit, very, very much on the empty energy-wise. Cancellara was the one who had a bit more power, and if you have the little bit more power, well, then you can do a lot of damage on the climb, as we see Cancellara doing on the Paterberg. And difficult for anybody, to claw their way back to a rider like Cancellara, certainly. And we could see our 2 men out in front. They held off that group quite well, and the group at a moment it was only 150 meters, but everybody, just on the end of the energy levels, and difficult to close down 10-15 seconds on an advantage.